It's March the 1st in Lake Lion and out Lake Lion for this month, I can tell. I'm Dana Durnford, your host. I also go by the name of the nuclearproctologist.org. If you don't smile when you're saying that, then you read it wrong. So it always takes a couple of minutes to get up to smash and speed. Let's cover some important headlines from the last number of weeks. There's still 760 million people locked down in China, 2.5 million in South Korea, and the list goes on. 12 communities in Italy. So it's airborne. How far does a sneeze travel? We got another story today claiming it only goes 6 feet. It's actually 200 feet. And the people that are saying 6 feet are not doing it for something to do. They're doing it because that's the script. It lasts on surfaces for 9 days. That's why they want you to wash your hands all the time. And they're still out there saying 30 minutes to 3 hours, quoting the World Health Organization. They've caused us nothing but grief since this started. And National Geographic was quoting 2 months. Let's just stick with the 9 days because the 2 months scares the daylights out of me. 1 in 19 people were being diagnosed. They figured, and this was like 2 weeks ago. So we get up to today's headline right away. Incubation periods, 24 days. We've seen cases of 28. And we've seen cases where it didn't show up, but it infected lots of people. Yay. And it's 20 times more likely than SARS to bind to the human cells. There was another study we covered on Friday showing it's 1,000 times. The World Health Organization warns that trolls and conspiracy theorists are undermining their response. Their response is doing the exact same thing I'm doing, except they're doing it, all the media is putting them on a pedestal, and they're reporting whatever the media reported earlier that day. That's all they're doing. They're consultants. They don't make vaccines. They don't participate in that. They're consultants. We don't need them. They shouldn't exist, right? All of our drugs, by the way, to treat the coronavirus depend on Chinese suppliers. Oh, joy. And when they're going to disinfect every city in China 4 times over the next year is what they're saying, but they're going to do every city right away. And we've seen examples of 100 dead animals, 17 species dropping dead because of the way they're mixing this stuff. And nobody is allowed to imply or have a conversation or even postulate this could have been escaping from a laboratory, because we know every country that has a facility will take these viruses and flus and they'll weaponize them in the laboratories. That's a fact. So why would we exclude that? Why the big whoop to attack anybody that talks about it? Really should worry the daylights out of everybody. $500 billion. It's now, I think the number now is 9 trillion just in the last 2 weeks. It was almost 6 trillion last week. Monday morning is coming. And I know some countries now have I'll turn the music down, I forgot there in the background. I know that some countries have frozen the stock trading in their countries, smaller countries. But we're talking about financial Armageddon. Most of these people were thieves anyway, so it don't matter. But this was January the 25th. So there's been a lot going on since then, right? And So it's around 9 trillion, which, by the way, if you look at it, 9 trillion puts us in a position that was, last time we seen anything come close to that was 1928, the Great Depression. South Korea reported first virus death. Now, this was the original headline about South Korea. So they locked down 2.5 million people. They didn't urge you. You get a fine if you're going out. That's called a lockdown, see? And this was the study I alluded to earlier, 1,000 times as strong as the SARS virus. And just remember, the people that make the vaccines have joked about killing the population. Some of them, a professor called for killing the population, 90% of them with Ebola. He's not cruel. So when you see people in paper suits going around outside of Fukushima nuclear meltdown, which can't protect you from radiation, by the way, or from the flu, but it's meant to make them think that they're protected. The World Health Organization ain't going to be wearing paper suits. The spread of coronavirus means that for now, things will only get worse for the global economy. Will only get worse. Almost $6 trillion last week. There's people in the stock market that have still never slept since Friday. They're like me, where they pulled out half their hair. Things will only get worse. Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. Like, this is Twilight Zone stuff right there. Look at this. Oh my God. Oh, nothing to see here. It's just a flu, I tell you. The World Health Organization, which is an umbrella of the United Nations, which is people that supersede your sovereignty in your countries for some reason, says there's a need to prepare for a pandemic, but the global market should calm the freak down as the coronavirus wreaks havoc on the economy. I'm not worried about the economy. I'm worried about you and your loved ones and your friends and your families. And I've covered these World Health Organization, how they artificially deflated the numbers when they first showed up, which was way late in the game, by the way. So the stocks would go up and people, their friends could cash in, right? We've done it twice. We covered it. We provided the documentation. We don't make conjectures and opinions. We provide the documentation for the assertions that we have. World, and we being me. This one-man show. World Health Organization stocking up on ventilators to combat coronavirus. Yeah, that's not panicking at all. No panic there, Dana. Coronavirus may have been around Seattle for weeks. Like, that's not good, trust me. Because it's, like I showed you at the beginning of the show, there's such a latency, right? Means hundreds of undiagnosed cases. If that's all it was, we'd be laughing. A man in his 50s died in Washington on Saturday, and they finally admitted they got a problem. Officials said 50 more people in a nursing facility got sick. They figured it's the virus. We're testing for the virus. Not food poisoning, but the virus. Okay. Don't tell us anything, because, like, first off, you're as intelligent as any of these people that we're going to berate tonight. Dirty, incompetent inbreeds that got the job because their parents had a job and their parents had a job. And they're incompetent and incapable, and they're not motivated to do their job. It's not a job. They were born into it. There was an entitlement in their eyes. When something happens like this, they're going to crawl in a corner, turn the lights off, stick the flashlight up in their face and go, "It's not happening! It's not happening!" That's the people in charge. They're not in charge, but they got the keys to the office where there's supposed to be somebody in charge. May have been circulating the States for 6 weeks. Thought you said 2 weeks. Make up your friggin' mind. I don't mind the 2-week part anymore. Let's go back to 2 weeks instead of 6 weeks. 6 weeks, bad. I believe we're facing an already substantial outbreak in Washington. Yeah, because you can't tell the truth for a second. I say all your teeth will fall out if you ever tell the truth. Your brain will go, you can't tell the truth, stupid. It was not detected until now due to narrow case definitions requiring a direct travel. So unless you went to China, they wouldn't include you. Does anybody really think they're not letting this happen? Or are they just stupid? And flipping a coin doesn't count, by the way. Can't be both of them, or can it? China's coronavirus deception put the world at risk, which is what we've been saying. Well, I've been saying here. Well, not saying, it's providing the documentation to prove it. Senator Marco Rubio, Florida, blamed China's failure to share necessary information that could have contained the coronavirus for putting the world at risk as more countries reported the first deaths from the virus over the weekend. Yeah. In other words, China sat on their hands, pretending, and with the help of the World Health Organization, which is outrageous for them to call themselves something like that, by the way. They're the industry apologists, would make sense. They've even intimidated the World Health Organization. Oh, sure they did. Absolute. I said, that's what happened. They didn't lie every day like we recorded them. And we showed that every day right up until the stocks went way up again and they cashed in. And then they done it again when they downplayed the numbers. We've been covering it since the 25th. It's Groundhog's Day for Dana. Motorcycling events now cancelled. When you see all these sporting events in different countries, but no symptoms in countries, cancelling sporting events, it's necessary to pay attention. See? Like I pray and hope every day that I'm wrong. I'd rather go back to boring old nuclear stuff than do what I'm doing here. But it's impossible for me to do it. And so what's the harm? Let's pretend I'm out on one of my expeditions, and when the trip's over, I'll go back, I'll show up and start doing nuclear again, right? But right now, we got to cover this topic because we got so many goblin and gobblish type people out there covering it. Speaking of goblins, police department push a hoax saying they'll test people's meth for coronavirus, tricking people saying coronavirus, you can get or if you're a meth user, if it's in your house, you can get coronavirus from it. But what they end up doing is they disenfranchise themselves even more, if that's possible. But now, like a lot of media has finally come out and bashed them good. Police departments across the country are issuing fake warnings that crystal meth supply may be contaminated and encouraging addicts to turn over their drugs for testing. And so when you ever see the Simpsons with the police, by the way, Simpsons are disgusting because they promote nuclear power, but remember the police is on that show going around beating everybody up and laughing about it all the time? That's not an accident. Encouraging addicts to turn over their drugs. Police are addicts, turn over your badges. Lebanon closes schools until March the 8th to curb the coronavirus spread. So Lebanon, we're seeing just all these events canceled in in all countries worldwide, all continents. Trump Chief of Staff suggests that people ignore the coronavirus news to calm the stock markets. That's not lunatic, is it? It gets worse. Of course. Mulvaney said he was asked by a reporter, "What are you going to do today to calm the markets?" It's like, really, what I might do today is to calm the markets is tell people to turn their television off for 24 hours. Still, the disease is absolutely real. You saw the president the other day, the flu is real. This is not Ebola, it's not SARS, it's not MERS. So he doesn't know what it is. Right? And they're quoting him now just to attack the left, attack the right, or the far left, the far right, the extreme left, the extreme right, the nihilistic left, the Mao right, the Pol Pot, so the parties were just to have a balance. They weren't to keep everybody divided and hating and fighting with each other. And because everybody just what countries that I skipped the headline for some reason. Romania limbed their, like we cover a lot of stories like that, and I noticed the last couple of shows where communities will just buy everything in the supermarkets. And they got no cases in their countries. 91 people quarantined, 7,000 kept in their home. But there's no cases. Then 7,000 kept in your home. Scenes of chock-full shopping carts, empty meat, and dairy shelves added to the growing sense of panic gripping Romania. Confirmed the first and only case, and they just limbed the supermarkets. And then supermarkets across the country were stormed by panicking shoppers looking to stock up. That's the new norm, right? All the big bands, this is just a fraction of them. Green Day, BTS, the Pixies, Stormzy, World Tour concerts canceled. There's something sinister happening on our planet. Coronavirus cougher, we covered him on Friday. I was calling him a fake. Now I got a headline to back it up. I call him fake because he fell on the ground, threw his jacket, and started coughing. And everybody started running in every direction, except for security guards who tried to help. And then he got up and walked away. But he was filmed, apparently, anyway, him and his cronies with cameras and that. Prankster. Security guards were filmed rushing to help the man. That was them doing it. So, because of there's so many variations of these stories, you can expect that. If they didn't do that, they'd be working for media lying to you. Federal Reserve must quickly stop the coronavirus stock market crash, says a trader. Federal Reserve must quickly stop the stock market crash. So you see how arrogant these people are. You can't take your money back. Debate on whether the Federal Reserve must hold an emergency meeting and cut the interest rate to arrest, which that's not what's going to happen though, because you got a pandemic. This is not some rumor. This is the real deal. And market crash, one of the hottest debates on Shithead Street. I'm sorry, Wall Street, ain't it? Yeah, Wall Street. That's what I meant. Traders and strategists are mixed on whether the feds need to go that route. However, strategists. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a strategist. A rate cut won't cure the coronavirus outbreak. That's some pretty clever thinking there, mister. Big cap stocks like Microsoft, Apple, Best Buy, Walmart, safe havens like Coca-Cola continue to be dumped aggressively. It's true risk of the street and no ultimate buy signals apparent yet. Buy, sell. They're the worst of the worst. Stock markets are not supposed to exist. Not under the Bill of Rights in Canada, or the Constitution in America, or the UK's Magna Carta, which is those three doctrines. Most countries, freedom is written off the back of those, right? Amazon tells all 800,000 employees to stop travel in the U.S. and internationally. Twitter just come out there before we went live and done the same thing. God, Twitter got a lot of people working for them, tell you what. not like Amazon though, instructed 800,000 employees, 750,000 employees, to avoid non-essential travel. On Friday, Google employee in the company's Zurich office tested positive. Now, I'm not going to say what I want to say because it's not nice to say it, I suppose. I wouldn't want to see a bunch of sick people go to Google and cough on door handles. That would break my heart. That's what that would do. I might just go get the coronavirus so I can go do it myself, though. Okay, that's stupid. If I get it, I'm going to visit Google. How about that? Beautician 63, because they censored me for so many years, was dying, and everybody else, and put all media on a pedestal. In fact, under all of my videos, you see the World Health Organization shows up before you see me. Beautician 63, who was diagnosed with coronavirus after a trip to Iran, exposed 40 people in Australia in her salon before showing symptoms, and they would have contaminated a lot of people. Iran health minister spokesman, 43 dead, 593 confirmed. This is probably yesterday's headline. Today's headline will probably show up in a little bit. There's just so much of this stuff coming out. I've never seen nothing like it before. South Korea told to stay home as the infections passed 3,100. And so the actual numbers were over 3 million, right? There was 400,000 plus military are quarantined too. So South Korea's news was bludgeoning China pretty good. And then all of a sudden, South Korea got hammered and you don't hear them bitching anymore, right? Interesting. South Koreans told to stay home as coronavirus infections surpassed 3,100. There's 3 headlines in a row. So there's no functional media anyway. South Korea urged citizens on Saturday to stay indoors as warned of a critical moment in the battle of the coronavirus after recording the biggest daily jump in infections, 813 new cases, 813 cases yesterday. Wow. For a country outside of China. China's locked down 760,000 people, 760 million people. Wuhan is still locked down. That whole province, Hubei, is well over 60 million locked down for 5 weeks. People can't go to work and pay their lights and power and telephone and heat, insurance, and provide food for themselves because most people live check to check, right? And you're seeing this now in many countries. Italy just done the same thing last week, recording the biggest daily jump in infections, 813 new cases in just South Korea. So it's just going to grow like crazy. And I love the South Koreans, by the way. It's outrageous. And then the solution is lock everybody in their homes. And then only the people that are in charge are the inbreeds of the inbreeds of the inbreeds. This is just a disaster. It shows you how incompetent they actually really are. In a nearby city in South Korea, LG displays to shut a plant down for disinfection after an employee of a bank, another company in the same building, tested positive. So this is extraordinary. This is a plague. I don't know about everybody refuses to say the word pandemic and has already met all the qualifications of that. But this is an actual plague. And then the illness will destroy your kidney. It'll fill your lungs up with this gel. It's like a gel. It's not like mucus that you can hack up. This is a gel. This is why they want you to stock up on respirators. And there's an absurd amount of people in critical condition that would be dead if they didn't have respirators pumping their lungs. Secretive military base outside of Paris was hit by coronavirus. So France, secretive base, who knows what that is? If not contained promptly, the outbreak could spell serious trouble for the French military, as the airbase houses much more than low-ranking grunts. And so the only high-ranking are inbreeds of the inbreeds, right? You got to come from certain families to be a high-ranking military person. And everybody else is a grunt. And the grunts, of course, are the ones that carries out the genocides at the orders of the inbreeds. South Korea reported a record 800 new cases. And then they like using the word cult. So they're trying to desensitize that group of people, and so they can carry out harshness on them, right? Coronavirus in Canada, they're saying we need more nurses, quarantine officers at the Canadian airports, border workers unions say. They represent 11,000 workers. They're taking home about $1 billion a year, so the unions are a serious kickback off that. They want quarantine officers. First off, we didn't have any quarantine officers pre-coronavirus. So they want to create these jobs is what they're saying, right? Public Health Agency Canada said the health risks associated with COVID-19, they changed the name of that, right, to SARS-CoV-19, is low for Canada. They keep changing the name, I gave up on it. Perth shoppers cleaned the shelves with bottled water, toilet papers, canned food, preparation for coronavirus. This is Australia, I guess. Perth? Yeah, Australia. People in Perth, Australia have started stocking up on every item in the book in preparations for doomsday. The media is just a weird, media is a cult, right? So is the World Health Organization. All they're doing is, they're not covering they're not giving you any context. You're just, like what I'm doing here is giving you a large scope context of what's happening worldwide, and I narrow it down to just the important stuff and some commentary. Bottled water, food, all snatched and gone, country after country now. No fear, pilgrims in Saudi defy coronavirus. This is the stupidest thing. See that? This is all people. They told them not to gather up because there's a big infection going through the country. Emergency laws drawn up to tackle coronavirus if it sweeps the UK. Emergency laws drawn up. So they just superseded the Magna Carta, right, in the UK. Not that that matters, because you got the Queen there, and she makes it up as she's going along. Her and that vampire, what's his name down there? Can't remember who it is I'm trying to refer to. It don't matter. Measures being considered reportedly include allowing schools to ignore maximum class sizes and holding lessons outside the school in case there's a widespread staff absence, suspending lorry drivers' 56-hour per week limit of driving so supply chains can keep moving if truckers get ill, and in a worst-case scenario, and the staff level collapses, army doctors could be sent into hospitals, which is going to be done anyway if it shows up. Coronavirus, don't bank on epidemics easing in the summer, by the way. And this is showing up in hot places and thriving. So, like your home is hot. You know where I'm getting to? Planes are generally hot. So we've seen it thrive in hot environments. It grows on surfaces, lives there. at room temperatures, which is pretty hot for most places. Don't bank on it easing in the summer, because it's going to be a pandemic. It already is, obviously. And we're just at the very beginning of this thing. Coronavirus epidemic it's a pandemic, by the way, takes a heavy toll on China's medical workers. There's enough infections in humans right now for it to sustain itself. I can't imagine why it would burn itself out in humans. It seems to like humans far too much. Well, that's what a virus needs, a host, right? At least 66 cases of contagion and 2 deaths confirmed in northern prefecture of Japan. So it's all over Japan. Japan is still, we know why they're hanging on to that fable of the Olympics, because the Olympics are supposed to be recovery Olympics for the multiple nuclear meltdowns that are still ongoing and contaminated most of the planet, but destroyed the Pacific Ocean. I've done the expeditions, they're up at my site. Many years on the ocean doing expeditions because of nuclear fallout, right? We totally destroyed the bases, the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain, and also absurd amount of emaciated animals. Been covering it for many, many years. Well, that's what I do, right? I'm a nuke expert. We deal with nuclear for the most part. But this is really on par with that kind of event. And so we had to switch gears. First off, to find out if this was real. And so far, we can't debunk the fact that this is real. So therefore, news on the death came from the governor of Hokkaido, invited citizens to stay home. So there was a death in the northern prefecture. And so they're also locking everybody in their homes for the weekend. Do you really think they're going to let them out after the weekend? Keeping them in for the weekend is not going to resolve it. Keeping them in like China for months might, to start, because this is so contagious. It doesn't make any sense unless you look at it as a pandemic and they're just slowly releasing information so they can liquidate their stocks and assets and gobble up resources before the world walks out the door. Like Italy woke up, they were locked, their cities were locked down, 12 communities were locked down. So they didn't have a chance to get ready. And they're planning on doing that to the rest of the planet. Suzuki launched the unprecedented appeal on television for people to stay in their homes. Bye-bye, Japan. Suzuki launched the unprecedented appeal on television. The situation becomes serious. I'd like you people to refrain from going outside over the weekend to protect your lives and health. And that's exactly what South Korea done, right? And they didn't get back outdoors after, right? Hey, prove me wrong tomorrow. Make me look stupid tomorrow, hopefully. Following the sudden request by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, this is a criminal, by the way, to close schools temporarily for a month. It's more than temporarily, because you know that it's going to run its course. That's why he's doing all of this. It's desperation, so they can loot the money before they come out and actually admit it. So soccer teams now, you can't do selfies, autographs. That's showing up symmetrical for sports. World Health Organization, Doctor, get ready for the coronavirus to arrive to a community near you. It's coming, man. A World Health Organization official told Matt Fry people should expect the coronavirus to arrive on their doorsteps as the disease spreads globally. There'll be a few of them with pains of conscience are going to come out and tell the truth. They'll get reprimanded. Don't do that again. The best way to stop new cases is to shut down functions for a while, she stated. Dr. Harris mentioned the work of China and how the Chinese government managed to quell the initial outbreak of the virus in Wuhan to a point where new cases of coronavirus are decreasing in the country. They still got 760 million plus locked in their homes. Police beat the shit out of everybody that goes out the door. Nobody's going to say I got the flu because they stick you in one of those prison hospitals that they built in 10 days. If anybody thinks China's numbers is going down, you could probably get a job at the World Health Organization. That's the only qualification, apparently. France bans public gatherings of more than 5,000 people. Oh, and churches and other places. Break it to them gently. France has banned public gathering of 5,000 people and more over concerns involving potential deadly coronavirus. Country top health official announced Saturday. Coronavirus, radical idea to move thousands of vulnerable New Zealanders could prevent mass casualties. So they want to move vulnerable people and isolate them so they don't get sick. They've done it before, right? That's what they've done in Spanish flu. That's how they got around stuff like that. The ministry continued to consider a range of options. Protective sequestering was effective in countering the 1917-1918 influenza epidemic. That was actually a pandemic, right? Went worldwide, which killed millions of people around the world. Kills millions around the world, it's a pandemic. Kills millions in your countries, it's an epidemic. It matters, trust me. The continuing rise in confirmed cases and deaths worldwide show the outbreak is on a firm trajectory to becoming a global pandemic. They actually know the difference. Go figure. Italian man who entered Lagos with coronavirus attempts to escape the quarantine when he actually didn't. He said he was thinking about it. The nurse was like, "That's outrageous. He was thinking about leaving." He said it was too hot and too many mosquitoes. According to Punchin.com, a health worker told at the hospital told a newspaper that the patient threatened to escape quarantine over the poor state of the medical facility. But he actually didn't try to escape, even though that's what they implied, right? So the media is just revolting what it's been doing. At least 500,000 people are infected with coronavirus in China. Way more than that, brother. China isn't a country that cares a lot about human lives or human rights. The number one focus is money. March Madness should be played without fans due to coronavirus. You've seen this over and over, these things where there's no participation. They just had the one championship martial arts the weekend, or end of last week, with no audience. Normally they got 12, 15,000. Same as these guys. That's the new norm now. Must be pretty weird being an athlete. Public health experts call coronavirus a pandemic. We are clearly in a pandemic. Ooh, World Health Organization is going to get you and spank you. The only reason we're not saying it is because of politics. Professor of Infectious Diseases at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. It's about time somebody said it. I'm mentioning no names here. It's a pandemic if you can no longer keep it to a specific geographic area. Well, whoa, what? That's a pandemic. It was a pandemic as soon as it went to Korea and they locked 2.5 million people to extra. Well, when China locked down 760 million people, that's a pandemic. That's gone to the four winds. China officials knew of coronavirus in December in order to cover up, reports said. Say it ain't true. Chinese scientists knew about the coronavirus and deadly effect as early as December, and ordered by the government officials to suppress the evidence, according to a report by another chicken egg. The researchers alerted Beijing of the findings on January the 3rd. Received gag orders from the Chinese National Health Commission and instructions to destroy the samples. Maniacs, eh? That's as maniac as it gets. But instructions to destroy the samples. I actually got 6 gag orders from the nuclear industry here in Canada because I'm so lovable. I'm so huggable. Brits at Tenerife coronavirus hotel will be allowed back to the UK if they test negative. If they will be allowed back if you're negative. What happens if you're positive? That's too bad for Sammy. Will be allowed back home if they test negative. Like, we've seen this a lot. Different countries doing that when it was the cruise ships, right? And then they'd finally frigate, we'll take them all. We got boxes, we'll stick them in a box. Have received notifications from the Public Health in England that they're free to return home pending a negative test. If not, you're not a Brit no more, scum. 4 guests originally tested positive for the virus, prompting authorities to lock down 1,000 people. Does that sound like they surrounded the hotel with police on top of that? Does that sound like a flu to you? It's like, I must have been asleep for a couple of decades because I've never heard tell of it. And so they won't even sequester themselves in the room. They're like, frigate. I'm going out on the roof, sunbathing. You got kids putting SOS on to get us to frig out of this Looney Tune. Police walking around, ready to pounce on you. Not as bad as China, I bet, but just as get a big fine and go to jail. Here comes the coronavirus pandemic. Ooh, you can't say that. You can't say pandemic. World Health Organization is going to get you and punch you in the nose for doing that. The global pandemic is all but certain. Coronavirus outbreak could force the UK to shut down cities. Still not a pandemic, Dana. So the World Health Organization says it is. Video shows the air taxi bringing medical supplies. These are great big drones, eh? Let's bring that on a big shot, full screen for everybody. So you can see it lifting, and we'll get to it. Look at China, right? All skyscrapers between the mountains, eh? It's crazy. It's amazing. Edward Su. Oh, yeah. It flies, and we can bring medical. This is unmanned. I think they got somebody on the other end with a remote control landing it, though. As you can see people run away after. And then it comes in and lands with medical supplies, and they can go out. Because if they try to bring it on the road, the cops will jack the load and beat the shit out of them. So they got to fly it, see? And that's a pretty good-looking cooler you had there, mister. And now the first passenger. I'm proud to be the first passenger for the emergency test. Wee doggy. The whole journey proved to be safe, fast, and smooth. You're not a bootlicker at all, are you? All you gotta do is just sit there and glide. Don't gotta do jack shit. That's pretty cool. I take it a couple of million of them up in the sky. France urged caution on Sunday's mass to curb coronavirus, so give another day they'll ban it. Air France, as France institutes a ban on gatherings of 5,000 people or bigger to stop the coronavirus. The health minister has urged people attending Sunday's church services to take precautions. Like what? Sneezes travels 200 feet, buddy. Asked to empty containers of holy water at the entrances so people dipping their fingers into contaminated water, which is actually a really good idea because we covered the studies. Seattle resident dies from coronavirus. Bloomberg, coronavirus message to air on primetime TV after the billionaire buys 3 minutes on scumbag CBS and NBC shitheads. Mike Bloomberg. Don't say it, Dana. Don't say it. I can't help it. I like to put him in one of those cannons you fire people out of, and you can figure out the rest. I wonder what anybody's seen that? I haven't seen it yet, so we don't know what he's saying, right? But apparently he's got input. To fight corona, he's a notorious scumbag, right? To fight coronavirus, France urges no more greetings with kisses and bans large gathering, and handshakes. Coronavirus is different. Almost no company is safe. Triathlon World Series Abu Dhabi postponed due. So you see all these events being cancelled worldwide. All stakeholders are working tirelessly against the clock to find a new date to host the event. The final 2 stages of the cycling were called off on Thursday after 2 riders tested positive. And now we got the weird old land. The pilgrims are going down licking shrines to prove they're not afraid of dying. I'm licking this and I don't care whatever happens. Proceeds to lick it. These are weirdos as it gets. So they don't want these people to gather because there's a pandemic happening, right? And so they're like, we don't care. It's good. I like it. I want to die for my Lord. I'm here to lick the tomb so I can fall ill, says bird brain dummy. Not only that, he wipes it all over his face too. No kissing, please. We're Swiss. Switzerland don't want anybody kissing either. Should consider dropping the everyday greeting, kissy each other on cheeks to avoid spreading the coronavirus. Yes, we got to wait now for the World Health Organization to show up way late in the game to all of a sudden they're the boss. That's just stupid. Pretty gullible if that's how you're going to look at this. You're just asking to get sick. One will be immediately stop shaking hands, stop kissing each other on the cheeks. Quite a few countries now are today saying that. Defense Department expects coronavirus will likely become a global pandemic in 30 days. But that's, of course, if they get permission from the World Health Organization first. It's not even supposed to exist. It's not so much a question of if this will happen anymore, but rather more a question of exactly when this will happen and how many people in the country will have severe illnesses. Because you only got so many hospital beds, and I got so many respirators. So the rest of you is too bad. World Health Organization rejected classifying the outbreak as a pandemic, claiming it doesn't change the response measures and can cause unnecessary fear. So the reason they're not going to call it a pandemic is because they're going to cause unnecessary fear. We've seen the same thing about radiation fallout. Well, we didn't want people to panic. They've done that in America, United States, and many countries after Japan melted down. That was their excuse. It's outrageous. They're so incompetent because their parents had a job, their parents had a job, their parents had a job. The current generation are incompetent and incapable, right? The World Health Organization rejected classifying the outbreak. Didn't want to cause unnecessary fear. That's the only reason they're not doing it, folks. Is that acceptable? That the rest of the world sits and waits for them to get their courage? I think the world is going to turn on them in the next few weeks. But that's where the situation is headed, according to Shithead. She said 2 criteria of a pandemic, a virus cause illnesses resulting in death and sustained person-to-person spread have already been met. We're moving closer to meeting the third criteria, worldwide spread. Well, I got some news for you, and you're soon going to find out it's true, that it's worldwide. Calm down, World Health Organization tells the global market not to panic after the coronavirus wipes $5 trillion off stocks. It's actually almost $6 trillion. Right there, love to play it down. Number one thing is just take a digit away. Calm down. The World Health is supposed to be helping countries deal with a pandemic instead of out there doing stuff like this. Out there on TikTok making videos, out there trying to control the narratives. Their job wasn't supposed to be doing anything like that. So why are they doing it? It's because they can't do their other job because they might get sick, so they're just going to yell at you to shut up. The virus sent the global stock market into a tailspin. Earlier the week, the worst since the 2008 financial crash. Well, that was a manufactured crash, right? That was the mortgage crash. I looked it up so we can talk about it. The 2008 financial crisis was the worst economic disaster since the Great Depression of 1929. And so the 2008 crisis, where housing prices dropped more than the price plunged during the Depression, 2 years after the recession ended, unemployment was still above 9%. Since the Great Depression, 1929. So the 2008 financial crisis downturn since the Great Depression was the biggest one. The housing market created an asset bubble in 2006. Banks bundled the bad home loans with good ones and sold them as a mortgage, which was fraud, right? Backed securities. And the investors who bought those derivatives believed that they were insurance protected. It was total fraud. And then the government bailed out the too big to fail banks, which was totally against logic by doing something like that. That's not what you're supposed to do. Right? And then they left the whole, then they took it over, made big coin off it, wiping out. So the virus sent the global stock market in a tailspin earlier this week. But that was $5 trillion. It was almost $6 trillion last week. Tomorrow they're probably going to lose $6 trillion tomorrow when trading opens again. The analysts also warned the total impact of the epidemic might not be seen for weeks. So as there's a huge lag in data, that's a very, 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 very important part of this equation. But only 3 official cases. Africa's low coronavirus rate puzzles health experts. The remarkably small numbers for a continent with 1.2 billion people. Well, first off, they don't have the resources. They don't have the equipment. They don't even have the will because they've already been beaten down for many generations, right? And so they're just out there, they're going to pay me $7 an hour to go out there and check people's temperatures, which only gets 2% of the population that's sick. Ethiopia Airlines, the largest African airline, never suspended its flights. We covered that to China since the epidemic began. Yet they only got 3 cases. Do you get what's happening? And then they got a very, it's not a good word, I suppose, but they got a completely dysfunctional medical system that would be absolutely overwhelmed in 0 time once this manifests and gets diagnosed and shows up. France closed the biggest museum in the world because workers are afraid they're going to get the virus. So Seoul, South Korea, explores murder charges against the church at the center of the South Korea corona. So they want to charge murder charges. It's crazy stuff. Hospital burned down in Iran due to coronavirus fears. Rumors started circulating people from another town infected with COVID-19 have been admitted to the hospital, but there was nobody apparently to the hospital admitted. But there's people dropping dead in the streets in Iran, right? I got that coming up. Tokyo, so there's more to that story than they're alluding to right there. Tokyo Marathon features empty streets, signs that ask, refrain from watching. They don't want you watching the marathon. Slimmed down version, one of the world's largest races, took to the streets of Tokyo on Sunday. Officials in Japan take extensive measures to curb the spread of the coronavirus ahead of the Olympics that are actually not going to happen. Tokyo Marathon was cut back to about 200 runners, far shorter. It was actually 47,000 or 57,000. Now they're dropping the number down to 30,000 who typically participated in the race to reduce the risks of spreading the virus. You got people running through the streets with nobody else. These are usually incredible large events because they pump a lot of money into it, right? I'm personally glad there's nobody there. The Olympics shouldn't exist. If you actually look at what happens, they leave police states behind and they displace the vulnerable people in areas where they're having it permanently and destroy their lives. According to the Wall Street Journal's Alistair Gale, race staff for the marathon held up signs at train stations in Tokyo. Please refrain from coming to watch the marathon at the subway stations. One of 6 preseason baseball games played at an empty stadium. They're usually like 60,000, 80,000 at these events, right? Now they're empty. Man, never, ever, ever seen anything like this. Never heard tell of anything like this. Coronavirus Iran video shows COVID-19 infected Iranians, including a young kid, collapsing on the street. We seen, I provided that a couple of weeks ago, was three 5-year-old, 6-year-old children in a single body bag. This is a kid can't keep his balance and falls down, allegedly. There's a lot of that happening throughout the cities. Another video showed suspected coronavirus patients lying still on the platform train station. A video filmed on a busy Iranian street showed a man lying unconscious. And a video filmed inside a shopping mall with a man collapsing suddenly while scared passersby are seen covering their faces swiftly to avoid getting infected. But there's big business now in demonizing Iranians for a number of decades now. Americans got 49 military bases around Iran and threatening them. They got nuclear weapons, biological, chemical weapons, and all of these. They're carrying out electronic, digital warfare in the country and the banking system. The military industrial machine, it's just unbelievably disgusting. Multiple sources from Iran, however, claim that the Iranian regime has been playing down the numbers. The numbers of those who died exceeds 500 dead people, they're alleging. But we'll know before the end of the week is out if that's true or not. Italy says its coronavirus infections, see this alert, jumped 40% to 1,576 at 34 dead and climbing. Rumors now the Pope has the coronavirus. The novel coronavirus can likely live up to 96 hours on phone screens, which is 4 days, right? But sneezing can carry the coronavirus as far as 3 to 6 feet, or 1 to 2 meters, says the useful idiot. Sneezes go 200 feet in studies, right? And so this is the World Health Organization narrative. Right? We covered this many times now in the last number of weeks. The World Health, that's one of the first things to come in and said, oh, well, I can only stay on surfaces for 30 minutes to 3 hours. It's actually 9 days. And it can only go about 6 feet, so we're lucky there. Actually, it can travel 200 feet and it stays in the air sustained. It's stupid. So anyway, they're sunburned. They're going to have this big patch around their face. Big patch around their face. Now we've seen, they're spraying entire cities, just legions of armies of these people. China located just in one go 43 billion, right? We covered that. It's really something. Well, that's what we got for you. That's all she wrote. It's the best I could do. Not feeling that great, but it's better to be cheery than it is miserable. And if you agree with that worldwide and watching this show tonight, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. We appreciate it. It costs us little and it goes a long way. Put me in your bookmarks so you can find me later. You can share me out there, and that'd be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind that at all. That's right, I wouldn't mind it at all. Give us a like anyway. Most people can manage to do that, right? Just doing the best I can. Just a man. God bless everybody. Thank you for finding the time, the courage, fortitude. Look for the truth and hang it out and hear it out. Because that's what we bring you. We bring you the truth. We bring you the facts. We bring you the reality. There's no sugarcoating it. You're big enough. You can handle the truth. My job is not to deceive you. That's what they're doing. My job is to show you they're deceiving you so you can make informed decisions for you and your loved ones. God bless you and yours. We'll see you all soon, right? Take care.